Okay, Reverend Dr. Maxine Kay is going to pray this meeting in.
Thank you, dear Connie. The beloved presence of God, all-knowing, all-loving, all-wise, is everywhere present, and it is so fully present right here in this beautiful gathering. We give thanks that each one of us is an individualized manifestation of that one life. And as I am a unique expression of it, oh, so is our beloved Connie, and each one who is here loving, supporting, knowing the truth, and celebrating the aliveness of our dear Connie. So we give thanks for this opportunity to open our hearts and open our minds and speak our truth and rise up to even a greater truth. For we're grateful that something beautiful is unfolding, that the unimpeachable wholeness of the universe is manifesting itself here and now, and that this is a time of compassion and courage and clear knowing and joyous manifestation of the greatest good we have ever known. We're so grateful for this opportunity to let God be God in us, to speak wholeness, to know the truth that sets us free and keeps us free. God is in this place, and all is well. With great thanksgiving and great confidence, we release our word now to the perfect law of mind. And shall we say together, and so
it is. Beautiful. Thank you.
So welcome, everyone. Just wanted to let you know I'm Michelle Taylor. I'm one of Connie's practitioners. And this is going to be recorded so that she can put it out on her YouTube channel. So if you have any issues with that, then you can go ahead and just make it so that just your name is there or whatever you want. And if you have any technical questions, just so you know, Pat Davies, you can send her a chat and she can help you with any of your issues. She's our techie guru that while we're on here. All right. I think that was all of the housekeeping I was supposed to do, Connie. So it's now.
Yes, I just want to add one little piece to that. If you do not want who you are out in the public by coming on this call was your agreement to be videotaped. If you do not want your picture, you just mute your video. That's all you need to do. Thank you.
All right, and we want to just give everyone a forewarning. Sometimes they just gave Connie her morphine, and sometimes she talks really fast. So if you need,
the universe has a sense of humor and impeccable timing. Guess what? They just gave me my meds. You get the high version.
Okay, so Connie, I think that you called for this event because you wanted to share some of the amazing ahas that have been occurring over this week.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Carol Carnes was supposed to be on this call again today, but she isn't able to make it. So we're just going to sort of wing it in a different way. So I'm going to start to just give you a little recap of how my week has unfolded for this week. And I think it's been maybe a year this week. I'm not sure because a lot has happened. And then Michelle may have some questions. And so this is really your opportunity to ask anything that you want to ask because we're going to have a different format that we normally would. So I just want to start by saying this whole process that I started, well, actually I didn't start it, God did, but through me, has been one of the greatest, or let me rephrase that, the greatest gift I have ever had. Many of you know the beginning story, like when I ended up here and then decided to go live. What I realized after the call last week is that to heal this way in a public forum is quite remarkable, and the stuff that it brings up and that level of vulnerability. But what it says to me by the amount of people that want to be on this call and be part of my journey is that the world is seeking deeper connection at a deeper level, because I know for myself before, if you're in a place and you're in deep hurting, deep healing, we tend to go away and hide. We go because we don't know what we're doing. We're vulnerable. We're protecting ourselves. We go away and hide. We have our learning. We have our dark night of the soul or whatever it is that we're going through. And then we may come out on the other end. And those of us with congregations or stories, we may tell a story about, I had this great awakening. But really all we're doing is telling a story about a story. And I didn't want that experience. I wanted you to be part of my story because I believe that's where the healing is going to be. Last fall, after the first round, I thought I'd had a healing then. Many of you saw me and I went back to Africa and I thought that was it. Well, apparently I wasn't done because this needed to happen. It has just been absolutely extraordinary, the experiences that people are having. Last week when I went on the call, afterwards, one of my students in Nairobi contacted me and she said that she had been really, really feeling like in that darkness for about 2 weeks. And she couldn't figure out what was going on with her. She'd do her spiritual work. And finally, we did that call that day. She was on it. When I spoke what I was going through, she realized she was actually experiencing my pain and what I was going through. And as soon as that cleared, it stopped. But she is not the only one. There have been many people over the past week that have said they've had the same experience. So if we have any doubt in our minds that we're all one, we're all really good metaphysicians. We all know that. We talk about oneness. We're all one. We're all connected. All of that stuff. We talk about it all the time. It really is true. If anybody had a little inkling that might not have been true, it's true. We are so deeply connected. And that's when I realized why I was so distraught about leaving Kenya or doing something else and actually chose to transition out of the world with not a conscious thought, but subconsciously, I chose to leave the planet would have been easier than leaving them. That's the depth of connection I have with my students in Kenya. Blows me away. So now I had an opportunity to make a new choice, a conscious choice, that I get to do this publicly. And originally, my original intention was just to do this for my students. And then other people wanted to be part of it. So I just opened it up to whoever wants to play in this arena. So it's morphing and changing as we go along. So that started my week last week. So the other day we were chatting about setting it up, and I thought I would do this every 2 weeks. And so I'm talking with Carol, and I said, okay, Thursday. And somebody contacted me afterwards, and they said, Connie, that's not 2 weeks ago. So I said, well, then I guess we're doing it in a week. So here we are. I had some more insight about, got dry mouth. This idea that somehow the experience I'm having is, our teaching symbol, that somehow spirit has disconnected in body. For me, I am not in my physical body most of the time. I am residing in spirit. And my insight I had around that, I don't know, Michelle, did I share this story last week where I was lifted out of my bed?
Not so much necessarily, and I think it's the start because that's sort of after that's the beginning of the ahas for this week.
Right. So this is the pivotal moment that it started. So when I was first admitted to the hospital here, they had to do a procedure on me. And normally this procedure is not a painful procedure, but because of the way the cancer is growing, or has been up until now, it's getting harder and harder to get into my abdomen to drain it of the fluid. So that day they were draining me downstairs, and it was very, very painful. They brought me back up to my room, and the nurses were working on me. Excuse me. They were working on me to get a handle on the pain. Excuse me. And I was laying in my bed. I wasn't in my bed yet. I was still in the gurney that they brought me upstairs in. And I was laying there in extreme pain, and they're working on me. And I reached over and I picked up my phone on WhatsApp, and I don't know who I recorded this to originally, but I hit record, and I don't know what I said. I think I said, I need treatment, or put me in the light, or whatever it is I said, just very, very short, and ended that recording. And then I took that recording and I just hit some random names on my WhatsApp and sent it out. After that happened, within about, well, I'm not even going to guess because who knows. But I remember imagining around my bed, there was a circle of people around my bed, and my kids were there, and some of you were there, like whoever I had called in, and they were lifting me up. They had their hands underneath me, and they were lifting me up like this, and they held me up above my body, and that's all I remember. And I went into whatever this state is that I went into. What I think happened, or at least my aha about that, is that in order for me to heal this, I need to be up in the spirit world, and I need to be separate from my body, because the body's in too much pain that I can't do the work. So it feels like I'm actually separate, like I'm not my body. My body is going through whatever it's going through, but it has no effect on me. And so when all of these things happen, it's like I'm up here somewhere processing the meaning behind what is going on and the experiences that I'm having. And I believe that you guys lifted me right out of my body so I could have this experience. So yesterday, my doctor was in, and I was telling him this story. And he was amazing man. And he said, he was talking about when people have a spiritual experience. He's done a lot of work in his PhD around this idea. And that often people, like remember with the psychedelic days with drugs, and this is ancient history. I mean, people used mind-altering drugs to reach a state of nirvana. Because we don't know how to do it. And that's really all we ever want. We all want, our desire is to recognize our oneness with God. But we're so in our bodies that we can't do it because we have this separation thing going on, even though we say we're unity. You know what I mean? So when I am in that state, he believes that I have reached that stage that people try to reach using, some people use a lot of pain. He was telling me in North America and Native lore, they do a dance called the sun dance where they put like these hooks and they'll go like 72 hours hanging in extreme pain. All of the things that they do is to reach a state of awe. And when he said that, I went, oh my goodness, that's where I am. The last 2 weeks, I am so in love with life. And everything has shifted. Everything is just And quite frankly, I don't want to come back into this body again. I couldn't wait in this experience. No, well, I think we can have it in the body. And then yesterday, after I was having a chat with him, my doctor, and we were talking about these things, and I was doing a meditation later, and the significance about how this is happening, the way it's happening for me, is way, way back before, like 20, 30, almost 30 years ago, when I first started on my spiritual journey. I was studying with a man by the name of Alexander Everett, who did a bunch of courses. And a course I did one time with him was out at Quadra Island. And it was a week-long course, but one of the exercises we did was we did this timeline of our life. And at that time, my timeline was 130 years, because the message was that I've got so much living to do in this earth, I'm going to need 130 years to do it. And I remember making a decision in that moment that if I wanted to live to be 130 years old, I needed to have a vital, alive, passionate body to do that in. So now I get to a place where I'm be 65 this year, which is exactly one half of the way to 130. I'm having this experience of my body falling apart. And for all intents and purposes, me transitioning. But that's not happening, but a couple of weeks ago in that idea. So what occurred to me yesterday is, because my body is not in any physical condition to house my spirit to do this work that I'm being called to do right now, that I needed to separate my spirit from my body so that my body can heal at a cellular level. So when I'm ready, when my body is healed, my spirit will come back into this body so I can continue the work. Now, we all know that life is eternal, and I could choose to take this consciousness and leave the planet and get another body and do it. But I made a choice. I want to do this consciously in this life. I want to do it in this body with this consciousness right here. I want to see this happening. That was a conscious decision I made. And so what's happening is my body is now healing. And, you know, I believe, and I know you all you metaphysicians, that our body holds memory, like all the cells in the tissues. I had another, the psychologist here in the hospital came yesterday, and believe it or not, he's just writing his PhD. Guess what? He's writing on exactly what I'm going through. And he walks in my door yesterday, and I'm telling him this story. I'm now his thesis for his doctorate on this whole, it's wild. But he said, in his circle, we call it, your issues are in your tissues. Isn't that great? So what's happening for me, every time my body starts, something weird and wonderful goes on with my body, and trust me, it is an anomaly. I am not having normal reactions to anything. But what happens is my body starts remembering this deep, deep pain throughout my life. All of the stuff, all of those memories, all of those things, those blocks, everything is going to come up to be healed. So that when I come back in this body, all of that memory stuff will be healed. Like I'll have a new body to do the next half of my life in. And I can tell you, when I'm in meditation and I'm doing my work, I can actually feel, and I know I said this last week as well, I can feel the atoms and the cells of my body transforming at a cellular level. I can feel that happening. So, anybody have any questions about that?
So we'll keep an eye out to see if anyone raises their hand. I think you talked about the two synchronicities, the two doctors that saw you yesterday. But also last week, there were some issues like some errors occurred, just some anomalies. And yet it's about through those anomalies, so much more occurred. And I think that's a huge connection, if you can talk about that.
Okay, so I'm going to do that. Thank you, I will, Michelle. So I really want to stress for you guys that I want this to be like an open forum, like be absolutely, if you need clarity, because right now I'm tight and I'm not sure how much sense I'm making. So if I'm not clear and you're not understanding, please ask, because I don't know what parts to fill in. So that's what's happening. The last couple of weeks since I first had that first experience, all day long, it's like I'm processing this stuff at a deep, deep level, stuff from like being in the womb and being a small child and all of this stuff. And, just random stuff as well that is coming up in my body. And so one of the things that happened last week is, you see my nice, I've turned into an elephant. I really am African. So I'm just getting my thoughts straight so I can get this story out in a straight way. It was a week ago last night. It was the Wednesday night before I did the first Zoom call last Thursday. I had been having extreme nausea, and I was very, very ill, and they couldn't get a handle on it. And in the night, they decided to do this procedure because I woke up in the night and I was, for lack of a better word, I was full on exorcist. I was like spewing bile all over the place. It's not a pretty picture. So the nurses and the doctor, the resident doctor on call, they were trying to hold off not doing this. But it came to that point that they had to do this. So it happened about 4:00 in the morning. And they were putting this tube in. This is called an NG tube, a nasal gastric tube. And what they're doing is they're pumping my stomach all the time because I've got this blockage in my bowels that it's not actually in my bowel, it's outside of, but there's a blockage and I'm not digesting. I can't digest anything. So it builds up in the stomach and then they have to get it out of me because it can't go out the normal way because I'm blocked. So they decided that they did this procedure and they put this in a bit from that. So you get the significance of this. Before that, I had been in conversation with my kids and with the doctors here because I was on end of life watch. Like that's where I was. And they were asking me, like, how is this, like, where is your point of no return? If you decide that, because in Canada we have assisted medical suicide, and that's what we were talking about. And the doctors are totally on board if I choose at some point. Oh, I'm not going. Don't have. Never mind. Cancel. So that night, I reached my glass ceiling. And what I know, when I reach that level of pain, that's it for me. Like that's my limit because I'm getting clearer and clearer all the time. I've always said I would never do life support. If it's my time, it's my time. Well, really, let me show you. There isn't much on it today. There's only one. Normally, like at night, this would be full. There would be about 6 bags of stuff. I am basically, for all intents and services, on life support. If they were to unhook me from this, I would be dead within a few days. So I am on life support. And that shocked me because I always said I wouldn't do that. But it's not normally what people would consider life support. Usually it's considered like your lungs have failed or your heart has failed and they have to keep your body running by machinery. That's normally what that means. But this is life support. I can't eat anything. Everything I get is through here. So I have this lovely little line up my arm. It's called a pick, and it goes into just above my heart, and everything that they give me is intravenous. So where was I going with that, Michelle? Oh, right, my glass ceiling. So then I said to them, so I know that my ceiling is all about quality of life, not quantity of life. And for me, quality of life is not to have that level of pain. Because if I have that level of pain, then I can't have a quality of life. So that's that. I reached that ceiling. So that night when they were working on me, I actually hit the glass ceiling, but I didn't go through. I hit it. So the next day, then I could tell my doctor, I know what it is. That's it. Like that, that's the point. So at any time, it's quite empowering actually to know that. At any time, if I hit that, I could choose to transition right there. Or I could wait till the next day and say, talk to the doctor, which I would probably do, and say, is this it? Like, is there any chance for me having any quality of life other than that? And if there's not that, then I would, but that's just all the story that isn't happening. But just so you get the significance of what that is. So since then, this week, this should be a very simple procedure. It's a hose. They put it down your nose and they're sucking out your abdomen. Easy peasy. Well, no, not stomach, not abdomen. I am having an extreme adverse reaction, not anymore, it's fixed yesterday, to having this in. And it 3 different times this week, it was so painful I hit the ceiling again. And when my doctor came in yesterday and I was telling him this story, it shifted everything. And now we know what that is and what that looks like. So when I hit that place, and okay, so sorry guys, my thoughts start racing because I'm on morphine, so just bear with me. You're getting the real me right now. RAWportunity. Reverend Nadine called it. She said, yeah, it's a raw opportunity. I am raw, and it is an opportunity to transcend that rawness, I'll tell you. So the hose was coming out, and nobody knew it. And I kept telling them every day, every nurse, I say, it feels like the end of the hose is sitting on top of my gag reflex all the time, and it's painful. And they just kept saying, well, it's impossible. It's in your stomach. It can't be there. Well, it was about, 3 days of that. And I kept insisting, and they kept insisting that it wasn't. And they kept saying, it's no. And so yesterday when they did a procedure on me, it was to move this back up again, because then finally they sent me for an x-ray yesterday. Guess where it was sitting? On top of my gag reflex in my throat. So I don't know how many days, 3 or 4 days, as they're pumping me, all they're getting is anything that comes down to my esophagus. My stomach was filling up with the poison, and it was growing in my stomach, and I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So they finally sent me for an X-ray, and they found out it was there. So my learning out of that, and for the hospital as well, I am so in the right place for this to be happening. I can't even tell you. The nurses kept saying, because it's such a simple procedure, and the word they kept saying is we understand that it's uncomfortable. And I would say it's so excruciatingly painful that I hit the glass ceiling. Now, I think there's a gap between uncomfortable and ready to transition. Would you agree with me that there's, a bit of a gap in there? So the night before last, in the night shift came in, and the nurse, and they're lovely people. This is not anything to do with the level of care, because what I realize when I have these experiences, it's not about being a victim. It's about learning about what's going on. And so this had to happen exactly how it happened for me to have the memories come up that came up to be clear. I believe that absolutely to be true. So the nurse came in and she said, so we're doing your procedure tonight. And I said, what's the other option? What if I can't do it? What if I hit my ceiling? And she said, well, there isn't another option. We have to do it. And it's just, don't worry, it'll just take a minute. And this had been going on. And so that night, the nurse and I kept going on and on and on. And I kind of turned into a bit of a bag on her. And I said, you're not listening to me. You do not. No, I said, you are not doing this. Finally, I said, because she would not agree that it didn't have to be done. In my mind, I made a decision. It wasn't going to be done on the night shift. I said, no, then it's not. I didn't say that out loud, but in my own self. So she went away and she had a conversation with the resident doctor, and it was a woman. I love spirit. The woman says, oh, I won't sign off on that. She said, I have a policy about those kind of procedures, and I will not do that procedure unless I can send the patient for an X-ray right after it's done. She said, so we're not doing that procedure. So I got to not have that procedure in the night. And so then the next morning, my doctor came in, and he is so amazing. And he said to me, okay, talk to me. What is going on? And so I talked about all of this stuff, and I said, so here's what I realized. And I think we all do it. I remember Carol used to say in classes, one of my favorite Carolisms is she would say, what you think you know gets in the way of what you need to know. I know Pat's heard me say that to you guys in class a lot of time, right, Pat? Often. What you think you know is getting in the way. So we think we know something, but we don't know what we don't know, and can't actually hear that there's another option. And I think this is, it's pervasive. It's everywhere. And so, the nurses they're the nurses. They're trained. They know. They've done this thousands of times. Everybody has the same reaction, except for me. So it's this piece in there of listening and not feeling heard, and how frustrated that is. And oh my goodness, I think of people, there's people in this ward that are stuck here in COVID, can have no visitors outside and do not speak English. Can you imagine their experience in here? Or other people that are deaf or handicapped in some way, and they can't get their words across. Think of a small child that gets so frustrated and throws a temper tantrum because they can't be understood. They can't get their point across. So I believe I had this experience because that has been my entire life of not being heard or validated. I've worked through this for years on this being heard. Becoming a minister was powerful because it gave me a voice. And so, I get my voice more and more. I'm dry again. Sorry, guys. I think this happens to us all the time. We've made up our minds about something is a certain way. We don't even hear anything that's outside of that. So 1,000 people is uncomfortable. One person is hit the glass ceiling. What happens is we then don't believe the person that is having the different experience because, well, we know the experience they're supposed to have. Has anybody ever done that in your life? Think you know something and somebody says something, you go, well, that's not true. And we dismiss them. Well, if we're trying to create a world that works for everyone, I don't care if it works for 1 million people. If it doesn't work for one person, we're not in a world that works for everyone. It truly has to work for everyone, without exception. This is huge because I know you guys have done a lot of work that not knowing stuff, not feeling understood is huge. And so we have to go into that place of extreme vulnerability to just sit with each other. If we don't understand, just sit in silence and let them talk until they understand. But often, I know this is true for me, and I'm sure if it's true for me, it's true for others. Somebody will be talking to us and telling us our story, but in the background, our mind is going, "Oh, this is how it happens in my life," and we've got our rebuttal already of how it is for us. And since I don't know about you, but for myself, I expect other people to be like I am. So I expect that they're getting what I get, but they don't. They get what they get, and they're not listening because they're busy formulating, or they're talking, or they jump in on top of you and, oh, if you think, oh, wait, you hear my story, right? And we one story each other up. And we're not listening. We're really not connecting. We think we know each other. We don't, because we're not paying attention. And so I think that this is what the world needs right now. I think we need to learn how to be that vulnerable to just sit. And in the world that we live in, to communicate at that level takes a lot of time. It's not easy to communicate. And we're so quick, and we, get on to the next task, oh, well, there, we tick off the boxes and we're out in the world and we're scurrying around and we're doing a million other things all of the time. And we think we're connecting and we've got these deep friendships. We can do a lot better. And the piece about this that really hit me, and, doing this out loud as I am and having these conversations, is to help us wake up. I absolutely think that we as a human race called COVID in to heal the planet. Because what has happened is we have hit the stop switch on the whole world. And I think, we all teach change. Change isn't easy. Even little change isn't easy. And even if it isn't working for us, we don't want to change it because we're comfortable. So nobody was going to change and get off that rat race unless we got off the rat race. So I have something else I often talk to my students about. If you're changing, that you have to change. You can't just talk about change. And you have to do whatever is necessary to make those shifts. And we just, as a planet, weren't there. We're so on the rat race, we don't even know we're on the rat race. We don't even know how to get out of the wheel. And if you want to change anything in your life, you don't have to add anything in your life to do. You have to stop doing what you're already doing. And that's what's happened with COVID. We've hit the stop button for the planet. Families have to come back together because they can't do it the way they're spending time together. They're learning to love each other. They're learning to communicate together because they have to. We had to be forced. Well, actually, I take that back. That's not true. We chose this. I believe as a human race, we chose to have this experience so that we can shift as conscious human beings. That's my story.
Okay, so we have a few people who've been making some comments and might have some questions. And I also wrote down, I have like 3 things then about stuff you've shared with me over the week to reflect with. So if there's
Thank you.
Anyone at this time, I know what she said has been huge. There's some.
Donna wanted to say something. And if people do want to say something, if you know how to raise your hand, you could do that. Or if you know how to use the chat, you could just put something in the chat saying that you'd like to ask a question or make a comment. And then we'll make sure that you have an opportunity to do that. So go for it, Donna. Do you know how to unmute yourself there? I might be able to unmute you. There you go. You should be unmuted now.
Thanks. Connie, a couple of times you and I have experienced where I would get frustrated with the loudness of your voice. And so when you're talking about not being heard, and we were kind of at the opposite spectrums on that. I would just want to be quiet and not say anything, and your voice would rise and like trying to say something. And so I've experienced that with you. When I had the children when they were small, I found it frustrating as a mother up until the age they started talking, because it was like, I know they wanted something. I know they needed to tell me something, but I just couldn't. And beautiful as babies are, talk to me, and then we can have a relationship. So other than getting to that glass ceiling, how do we learn this quicker, or COVID? How do we learn to communicate better?
Thank you for asking. For those that don't know, Donna is the woman responsible for me being a motorbike mama.
Yeah.
She was my riding buddy, and she's been over to see me twice in Kenya. Most recently, she came when I went back in December to help me after my treatment. When I went back to have the conference, Donna came with me, and she lived with me for 2.5 months to help me do all of that. So that's Donna. Thank you. So of course we were living together, and we have a long time friendship. So stuff came up. And those of you that are my students, those of you that know me, I am loud. And that's part of this whole thing. I get louder because I don't feel heard. And the more I don't feel heard, and I've had people tell me over the years, like, you're aggressive, you're like, they don't like me because I'm so loud and my voice is loud. It's all tied to that, John. That's all part of it. So, when I come into this new body, let's tone it down. I'm not going to need to do that anymore.
Well, Connie, that actually ties into one of the things you and I talked about, because you said that you realized that with the tube that it was about you not being heard and that had been a life issue for you. And yet that it took the space of that week for you to be able to work through your not being heard issues. And then you and I had the discussion about how, well, in religious science, we assume responsibility for ourselves, but other people that are out picturing in our life are also part of the equation. So they had healing to do, you had healing to do. Can you talk about that maybe a little bit more?
Well, I think that's the work we need to do. Everybody. We need to, because I think it's a human, we all want to be understood, right? We want to be close to people at that level. But we don't know how. And so I don't know how either, quite frankly, because I'm still up here. But I also had a thought yesterday that perhaps what's happening with this public stuff that I'm doing in healing this way is together, we come together probably every week like this, and we can start figuring out a model. It's like Holmes came up with a model for treatment. You know, one of the things I love so much about this teaching is it is practical. And as you all know, that know me, I say, you know, I'm a practical religious scientist. I'm a metaphysician with her feet firmly planted on the ground. Well, sorry, I just walked off the woo-woo cliff. I'm not there anymore. But I think we need to develop a model to communicate more effectively and more efficiently so that we do have a tool. And there is a tool that and Michelle, you're going to love this. It's a class that I teach. And if you haven't, please talk to me. If you don't know this work, it's powerful. It's called Nonviolent Communication. And it's by a man by the name of Michael Rosenberg, who actually transitioned last year. And he's used this model that he has. He's traveled all over the world to war-torn countries and get different gangs and wars. And like at that level, getting people together to have conversations to understand the other person's point of view. He has a beautiful model. I use it in my classes. And I said, Michelle's going to love this because her and one of my other practitioners from Calgary, Susan Berry, I did a 3-week course with them, just privately, the three of us, to work them through. And you can tell by the look on Michelle's face how much she loved that. And so there is a model out there. I think that Marshall Rosenberg would be so honored to have his work used in this arena to develop. And I've developed a curriculum. Well, actually, I didn't. There's a whole nonviolent communication thing, and they have training and stuff. I think that's a great model to use. And I won't get into the model here, but I think there is a model out there. We just need to start doing it.
Well, and Connie, all I know is I actually had read the book before that, but the way that you took us through it was so powerful. And so it might be with that.
You're right, Michelle, but it's the same thing as taking Science of Mind classes. You can take our books, right? How many people have been reading Science of Mind books or metaphysical books for years before they found this Centers for Spiritual Living or religious science or anything, right? But it's really hard to do this on. How do you learn to communicate with one person? How do you learn? That's why we are a teaching model. That's why this is a teaching philosophy, because we can get it all intellectually, but if we don't come together and actually learn to do it together, it's not going to work. So that's what I think we need to do. We need to start doing that kind of work to learn how to communicate at that level. And his model is brilliant for that.
And I think that ties into what you've just said, because I know is that your RAWportunity. Maybe you can talk about why it's so important for you to be showing up and sharing in this place right now and what a risk that is for you.
Yeah. But, I've had so many people say to me how courageous I am to do this. Again, I don't feel courageous. It's just what I have to do. I've been following spirit for so many years. When it comes through me that this is my next direction, there's no fear. It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I just do it because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's kind of how I've learned to live my life since I've been working in Africa, because I have learned so much there, and the depth, as I was saying before, of connection I have with my students. And I know people that were over there at the conference can they witness this. So I come back every year and I go and I do my fundraising and I visit centers and I talk about this and I talk about my students and I tell people how wonderful they are and the depth they're going. And again, people don't understand because they don't know what they don't know. And when I had 17 ministers that came to the conference, and so they got to interact with my students, every one of them could not believe the depth and the understanding that these people have of brand new students in Science of Mind. And I've had people come and sit in on my classes. Right now I'm teaching Zoom classes, and people absolutely. I'm teaching a class right now called Sacred Gifts. There's another class that we've got to get on the CSL curriculum. It's more personal development than it is spiritual, but it is such a powerful class. I have 35 people now taking that class. I have all over the world people coming in to take that class with me right now. And it's so valuable that I think I'll do it again after this one and have more people. And I'd be open if anybody wants me to facilitate a nonviolent communication. That one I would need probably 8 weeks to do. It's deep. But I'd be willing to do a Zoom class so you guys can use these techniques that I'm using to go to the depth that I'm going to. I'd love to share it with you.
Well, I certainly would agree that 8 weeks is better than 3.
Yeah, but I thought you guys are already practitioners. We only had 3 weeks, and you guys are powerful. You don't need the whole 8 weeks. But has anybody ever done that with their students? And one of the things I want to speak about this understanding, another just thought I had, and can you imagine it's almost an hour already? If people want more, I'm okay going over, or if you need to leave the call, you can. But see, there it is, gone. What was I saying, Michelle?
We were talking about the class, condensing it, expanding it, you said, and nonviolent communication. Any of that trigger? No.
It's gone.
Okay. Well, and you were offering your services, which I think is pretty amazing. From having walked this path with you in Kenya for the last, I don't know, the years are getting up there, but it was such a marvel to really be able to get to the place where we could do the Zoom classes, correct? I mean, that was huge.
If it weren't for COVID,
right,
that wouldn't be happening because they didn't know that they could do it. Even when I would tell them that they could do it, they didn't. Oh, that's what I was going to say. When we're in classes with our students, because it applies everywhere. When we're in classes with our students and we're telling a concept and we say, so do you understand that? And they'll say yes. Whether they don't, because they don't know what they don't know, they think they understand. How many times have we lost the boat teaching people principle because we think that they got what we're talking about? So I do it differently in my classes. So I'm mentoring a couple of people right now to help me teach classes so that, if I'm too ill to teach, then I have somebody else that can jump in. And so I've been on the calls with them and coaching them because I know my students. I know when they're not. But I never ask, do you, a yes, no question. And even if they answer the question correctly, I will ask them to explain it. Yes, you're right. But how did you get there? What did you mean by that? Because they could still stumble on being right and still not understand. So when I'm doing a principle, I make sure that they understand in their word. Does it take longer to teach class? Absolutely. But I think we all do it. Maxine's nodding. I think we all do it. We assume that people know because we do. Don't assume. And we assume because this has been around 100 years. It's everywhere. It's mainstream. That people don't know, and they don't know that they don't know.
And I can affirm that. Taught with Connie. I'm one of the people who's like, okay, so you get it because it makes sense to me. And I think that's the shift that Connie is bringing to us teaching in a wider place, right? Is because she has developed techniques to help them be able to articulate using their
their words, their language,
their culture, right?
Yes.
And ironically, it's in doing that, Connie, that I see the depth and richness of your students.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
They may not be exactly on, but what they bring to that discussion, I have often said, I wish I had that here in the States as a teacher of science of mind classes. Like I haven't had the richness that I have in Reverend Connie's classes.
So, if I open it up for those of you that are ministers on this call, if anybody wants to sit in on any one of my classes and just witness it and see how I do that, let me know. I teach my classes. Right now I have one on Saturday from 10 to 12. And I have two classes on Sunday, one from 7:30 to 9:30 Mountain Time, and the other one from 10 to 12 Mountain Time. And those times are fixed. They're not flexible because my students are 9 hours ahead of me. So I've got it so that it's their evening, and that's why these classes happen at 10 o'clock, so that my Kenyan students can be on. But if anybody's interested, please send me an email, send me a WhatsApp. I'll send you a link to the classroom and come in and sit in a class.
So in chat, we've had several people who are excited at the idea of the nonviolent communication class. And I'm aware of the time. So one of the things that was left on my list is the life support. Like you've talked about life support as in,
I think I touched that already.
I know, but the thing is, if you flip it, life support is what you're talking about when you felt us lifting you up, right?
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes. And so, we teach in this teaching to turn away from the condition and go to spirit. Well, I took it a step above that. I actually left my body to heal. And I know that kind of sounds counterintuitive and perhaps smacks of duality, but in my mind, it's not. It's not duality at all in my mind. In my mind, this is pure religious science, that I am paying that my body, my physical body right now is no thing to me. And so I know how to work on the spirit level. The doctors, you guys doing treatment, my team that's doing the healing in my body, they can do that. And I know it's not mine to do. And I also know that when my consciousness shifts, my body, like, please, I don't need anybody telling me principle around this, because I know principle, but I'm having a different experience. Because I need to have, for myself, I'm clear, I need to in order for my spirit to come in and live the next 65 years of my life, I need a new body to do it in. And so that's why I've separated my body out. So the people that are expert on the body, because if I'm in my body and I'm in pain, I can't do the work up here. And I know that everything is shifting, but this is part of the shift. So you may not understand that. It may sound like duality to you, but I just want you to know and trust me that I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. So truly, you are on life support because we are all supporting you in living.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Michelle.
Huge life support. Yes. Okay, so as we bring it to a close, one of the things Nadine suggested was that at the end, everyone treats out loud for you. I believe that's what she was.
Oh, beautiful, Nadine. I remember mentioning that at the end of last week. Nadine did a beautiful treatment, and then she had everybody wave and send me light. So what she suggested that we do when we're ready to treat out is not one person is going to treat out. We're going to unmute everybody, and everybody is going to treat together. And you're going to be sending me, yes.
Mm-hmm. So yes, this is a chamber of prayer. It's I've experienced it here in Vegas, so I'm sure, I don't know if everybody calls it that. So at this time, if everyone that wants to participate in treating out loud for Connie, if you unmute, and then is there a minister that can just start us off by any chance? Because this is not, chamber of prayer is not my better skill.
I'd love to.
Okay.
Thank you,
Miss Connie. Love you.
Beautiful.
Good. So right here, right
Okay,
now.
I'm ready. Beam me up, Scotty.
Ready? All right, I'm starting. So right here, right now, as we join in this Zoom prayer to support Connie in life, the inner life, the outer life, the life of spirit, the life of body, life of heart, life of mind, we all join in together in this chamber of prayer, knowing that life reveals itself in the highest and best ways with every breath and every heartbeat, and that this deeper knowing of the glory of the universe fills and fuels her in her work in this moment and in whatever work there is to be done next. And so blessings are abound and joy is revealed, not just for Connie, but everyone whose life she's ever touched, including ours. And so in the blessedness of this moment, there can only be healing happening. And this healing is a revelation into a world that works for everyone. So with awe and gratitude for everybody here and for this call, I simply turn this over to the universal law, knowing that it's already demonstrating it in the highest and best ways now and forever. And so it is.
Okay, now we need the group one.
Yeah, I didn't hear you all chime in.
I know, everybody got a little nervous.
I still want it. Do it.
All right, she's so demanding. So in this moment, if everyone just does the realization part, let's just go in and claim
there is only one life. There is
The infinite life of God is manifesting itself purely, wholly, constantly,
Father God is
powerful,
flowing through and as her, that she is supported. I tell this is like
put up on blocks. So that
Love is always infusing her with light.
the beauty of life,
healing power,
intelligence regarding everything. She's the mind or heart of life.
I know that only God is revealing it right here.
God embraces this one. Here's her, here's her spirit, and here's who she truly is, and the message of truth. And as she steps forward, I know there is only love for Connie. And such deep gratitude for this. I just say, and so it is.
And so
it is. So it is.
So it is.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us.
That was extraordinary. Oh, thank you. I love you. I thank you. I'll probably be doing this weekly. Jump in, jump off whenever you can. It will be the same Zoom link every week. You have it once, that's the room you go to every week. I'll be here, same time, same place. I love you. Thank you for being on my team. Thank you for being my life support.
Thank you.
Much love.